No, I meant the other one because Art of War is also left.
No, I was talking about. Oh my god, it's too confusing. We're gonna have to get Nanavati. That's his name now.
We've got Nick Brown and Nick Pert.
Well, no, call me Nick. It's just Nikos, by the way.
it's in his.
It's in the clues in the Twitter handle.
Look, we've got nowhere so far. Let me start. So today's show is about the news because there has been a fucking monumental volume of news in the past 6 days. There's been 2 codexes fully released. There's obviously the news on Saturday, which I haven't asked you two about at all. We're talking about no digital books. So there's that to discuss. There is an absolutely primo article on the Warhammer community site, which is
I love it.
It is a fucking meme
prime bullying material.
Oh, it's just fucking liquid.
Have you been on
gold.
STNT yet, by the way, Rob?
Already have. It's like the most popular thing on there. It's the most popular thing on there.
It's brilliant.
Right, okay. So, but before we get onto that, I'm going to talk to Nick and Tom. Nick, how's 40k been for you the past week, and how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. 40k's been pretty good to me this week. In terms of I've played 2 games. So I played a game against Rob last Saturday, and it absolutely smashed me. So it was a close game.
Smashed you. Yeah, it was close.
It was a close game.
Yeah.
And the red roller ran down one of my Wraith Seers. I killed quite a few Met guns early on, but eventually enough of Met guns survived to take out my Wave Serpents. And yeah, you got the win. And then I played against my mate Andy on Wednesday, and he had his old Marines, but I took my Orcs this time. I took a bit more of an Orc Horde, and we had a little bit of a battle for the pass style game. I managed to sneak some knobs into his backfield turn 1.
Classic
Nikos move.
Yeah.
Then that distracted him turn 1, which I think that was probably his big mistake of the game. He got too distracted by 3 Mega Knobs. He could have dealt with him with the Redemptor Dreadnought, I think, but he sent quite a few units after them just to get rid of him. And then it was actually 1 point difference again. So it's my second game in 2 weeks, which has finished with just a 1 point difference, 75-76. So that was pretty cool. And it was all sort of end game ones because he didn't score any secondaries up until the 4th turn. Then he scored 25 secondaries in the last 2 turns. Mainly that was because they were end game ones rather than progressive scoring ones as well. Yeah, enjoyed both games. But in big news, I don't know if you want to. So I've got a competition to do for a big prize.
I would like to do that. Could you tell us what's been going on? What's been going on with this competition? It's been a big deal.
Well, so earlier this week, I realised I looked on Twitter and I looked at my profile page and I was like, oh, I'm on a decent number of followers now. I've got I realised I was 69 followers away from having 1,296 followers exactly. So I decided to run a competition as a giveaway, as a thanks to the community, just to pay back, give what I can.
Does that mean you got 43 followers off this?
Yes.
Yeah, because aren't you currently 2 away from 1269?
No, he's got past it 1270 now.
Oh no, there was when I checked you on 1267, and I was like, 2 more. So excited.
Someone unfollow him.
Go and follow me.
Someone unfollow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was close to this monumental number, so I decided to give back to the community by giving away this beautiful square 25mm Slaughter base used with some double-sided tape on it.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hold up to the camera properly, please? I can't really see it in its full majesty.
That's pretty nice. That's
gnarly, dude.
That's pretty nice. So, can I ask you a couple of questions?
It's not a Games Workshop one.
Can we get some wows in the chat?
It's not
please?
a Games Workshop one.
No.
Okay,
it's just like a regular square.
Cookie, thank you very much. He wants that base.
Thank you to Final Cookie in the chat for donating 5 gift subscriptions to the show. I assume it's in trying to convince you to give him the base. Big love for donating that.
Can you roll a crit? Finally subscribe now.
It is pro painted. So it had a model on it, was sprayed bronze. The model has since come off, but the double-sided tape and turquoise is still there. So I did use it to paint one of my Chaos Space Marines. Yeah, there you go. It's pretty.
Can I ask a
big
question
deal.
about it?
Yeah.
He says you got it. Those slotters are gold, guys. Thanks. Is it a base from a 10-man unit with just one of them, or is it actually a base from like a hero model, like something completely different that we weren't expecting?
Well, I like to think every model I paint is a hero. So.
Okay, right. So how are you doing? So what were the rules of the prize draw?
So you had to retweet or comment on the tweet. So we had. So there was a lot of favorites.
Not four different things.
Yeah, we got up to 200 favorites, but that unfortunately didn't enter you into the prize draw. We had 57 retweets and 37 comments from different
but how
people.
many people? Okay, right. Yeah, I was gonna say people can do both.
Oh, do you want me to what's the Twitter analytics of it? Because I think you can.
Yeah, you can check what reach you got.
Yeah, let's look at the reach.
I have a quick question for you, Nick.
29,000 impressions. 3,300 total engagements.
Well done. Well,
for this base.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Do you feel that this was? Oh no, do the draw. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to do. I've got an Excel spreadsheet. I've not entered everyone's name into it, but basically, so the retweets will be first and the comments will be last. So I'm just going to randomize a number.
Can you show us the Excel spreadsheet so we know you're not rigging it, Nikos? Because it's a very important prize. We need to make sure this is done above board.
Sorry, excuse me. Does the spreadsheet cost £12 billion?
Yes, it's of course. I'm not messing about. This is an important draw. I wouldn't want to lose any data doing it.
Yeah. Make sure you got like those GDPR guidelines.
Yeah. So okay, get ready, Nick. Let's do it. Do the draw.
The function thing. I'm.
Have you broken it?
Yeah. I meant to set it up before, and I've just because I'm live on out. I'm fluffing because we're doing it live. Can you? What do you guys pick a random number between 1 and 97?
Just go to a random number.
Tom, go on. Choose a number, Tom.
So 1 and 97, all right? Hold on.
Yeah. Oh my God! Just choose a number with your face.
1 and 97. Okay, it is number 63.
63. So that's
the obvious right answer was 69. You fucking thank you,
yeah,
David, in the chat. Obviously, that was the right.
That is Narrative Labs on Twitter.
Oh, congratulations!
_labs.
Well done to Narrative Labs. Yeah.
So really he just needs to DM me his post his details and I'll post it out. Special delivery.
Well done. Well done on Nick. So Nick, thank you to the Templar for subscribing, by the way, and thank you to everyone who's subscribed and also to Do Our Date and donating 50 bits for my Warhammer 40,000 app fund that I have set up for myself. So I assume, Nick, some people might not be aware. This is a I think the idea of punching up in satire is something that we should all be aware of. The concept is that giveaways done online don't really generate anything of value for the community at all, I think is your point.
Yeah, not really. They just seem like a pointless thing to do, and it's only for getting numbers.
Are you telling me it's just for self-aggrandizement?
Yes. And that's exactly what I've done it.
Expect my giveaway
got
tomorrow.
A lot of followers, Rob's turn.
Lucky bastard. Well, congratulations, by the way, on getting that prize. Tom, 40k this week. How have you been doing?
I've done basically nothing, mate. I painted a Guardian. I finished painting it.
Right.
Look, there you go.
Okay, congratulations. Is this because you're building an Eldar force?
I mean, I've already got an Eldar force, but I'm repainting it all in my one colour scheme.
Ah, interesting. So, is it an ubiquitous colour scheme so that you can play as anything?
It's black, but what I'm doing is I'm highlighting it all with 5 layers of highlighting. So I'm starting Corn Red, Mephiston Red, some orange, a yellow, and a white, and then it goes towards the white the closer you get to the corners. So basically, it's looking like a lava Eldar army.
Oh, nice! That's really fun. Are you happy with it?
Yeah. Apart from the fact that it took me like a month to paint a Guardian, but apart from that, yeah, it's great.
Oh, okay. And thank you to Do.Day for donating 50 bits for the Narrative Tom Fund. We'll get Tom a Black Library book.
Speaking of which,
soon.
I'm going to buy myself some Sons of Behemoth because they're shit.
No, they're
they're cool anyway.
No, they're situationally good. That's you're thinking about.
Yeah, the situation being if I want them to look nice on my shelf, which is what they will do.
3 opportunities to shout timber every game.
Yeah, there you go. It's another good situation.
That's the power. Right, so hello everyone, welcome to the show. Me this week in 40k. I've had a blistering week in 40k.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
I played 2 games of 40k, both of which I loved. I played Tom if you remember. No, I played 3 games of 40k this week. 3, yeah.
That's some news. We did our first live 40k game from the studio.
Yeah, last Thursday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was fun. Tom, thanks for the game. I really appreciated it.
It was very funny. I enjoyed it.
Thanks also for going easy on me, I think, is the situation.
I didn't go easy on you, Rob. I'm just really shit at the start of editions.
I mean, not as shit as when I later as not deploying on objectives, which is something I still.
I mean, that was pretty shit, but I did warn you because I was equally shit, and therefore we got a problem. Okay.
I just like everyone to know that on my deployment stats bar that I would get for my player card,
it would be about the same as Nick's.
Yeah. So I played Tom, which was awesome. Then me and Nick played. So I played against Eldar, and then I played against Mr. Mark Wildman with his Gene Stealer Colts. So overall,
pounding games, dude.
Yeah, he is. He is pounding games.
Why?
He's pounding as many games as he's pounding men. Like he loves a bit of Warhammer. And it was really fun to play him as well. Like I played, it was 3 really different experiences, 3 really different armies I played against. You know, your elite Custodes with knights, Nick's elite Eldar shenanigans, and then like horde-ish Gene Stealer cults, which was like also fascinating. But I have some, I suppose my very first like topic, if you don't mind me talking about it.
Have you had some musings, Rob?
I have had some musings, if you don't mind.
Are we entering into the?
We absolutely need a jingle for this segment.
40k musings section.
Rob's musings. No.
Well, I'll quickly highlight my games real quick. First, Zinrak, thanks for subscribing. Also, Ziggy, I saw you there. Winner Staten, where's my invite? I need to learn 40k. You can come on the show every week if you want, or you can come up to Nottingham whenever you like. You shitter. He's also a shitter. Screw that guy.
We're all shitters here. It's fine.
Yeah, you can come up anytime, Logan. So my musings are. I'll talk through my games really quick. Played Tom, hilarious. I played my orcs every time, but I have changed my list up a little bit. My first experience playing with Tom, I didn't really know what secondaries to pick. Although I now know, having played enough 40k, that you only choose 3 secondaries. It's easy.
Yeah.
You just choose those 3 every time. And then you just change 100 points in your list to choose 2 5-man units to do the third secondary. Super easy. So you always choose engage on all fronts. Yeah, always. And then if you're playing loads of vehicles, you choose bring them down. And then you probably just choose that anyway, whatever. And then you go for deploy scramblers. Simple.
Easy.
Please give me £150. And so I really enjoyed that, which is kind of something I've learned over those times. And I changed my list around. So when I got to play Mark, I'd like changed my list a little bit. I'd gone from just having a brigade to brigade to is it battalion? No, wait, what did I have? Yeah.
Patrol?
No, yeah, to having
patrol battalion brigade.
Yeah, sorry. So I had a battalion initially, and then I eventually ended up with a battalion and a patrol. So I was a few CP short, which was fun. I also like really gotten into. I've really gotten into just spending CP before the game starts. It's fucking sexy. You're just like,
okay. What's your limit? Where are you trying to get to? At what level of CP do you get off?
Well, so I spent 2 CP on a patrol, so I was like, whatever. But then I like upgraded my weird boy to a warphead. I upgraded the best unit in the game, although more on that later, which is a Bonebreaker. Yeah, Bonebreaker truck. Yeah, so it's not a truck though, it's like a bigger truck. It's called the Bonebreaker, Battle Wagon. Bonebreaker, yeah. And but then I upgraded him so he had a special type of roller called the Red Roller, and it's the fucking funniest thing I've ever done in my life. And then you spend 2 CP, thank you to Nick for giving me this idea, to just fucking launch him 3d6 inches, yeah? Punch it in the face, and then you do 12 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 9, -2, 2 damage, wiped out a Wraith Lord, which is the most fun I've ever had.
Can I point out something here, Rob?
Yeah.
Last week you gave me a bunch of grief for spending all my CP before the game started.
And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, Tom is always
Since
right.
then, Rob's mused.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I've mused, and then I've thought he's
Like,
absolutely the one. However, so I went into my third game having decked a Wraith Lord with a Red Roller, in love with the Wraith Roller.
Thinking
the Red Roller.
Yeah, we're calling it a Wraith Roller.
Yeah, the Wraith Roller. Yeah, maybe the Wraith Roller. And then I went into a game where I needed a 9-inch charge on a vehicle where I can roll 3d6 re-rollable, and with +1.
And, so you need 8-inch charge, effectively, yeah?
Yeah, on 3d6 total, and I failed it twice on the re-roll, so that was kind of my experience. So I played Nick, really fun, really enjoyed it. The Wraith stuff was really fun to play against. Nick had some terrible rolls, especially mid-game. I played Mark, and then I played quite well, I thought. And then on turn 3, I had 5 charges, Gazzy, 2 units of boys, Red Roller, and another unit. I can't remember what the other unit was. 5 charges with orcs, one of which was a 9+. The rest of them, well, not a 9+, it was an 8 rerollable. The rest of them were 5s, and I failed them. All of them, and I was like, oh, sad.
Every single one, yeah.
Every single one in one round.
That's the way it goes sometimes with orcs. So, like, you take rough with this move, especially when you're playing around things like to jump quite a lot. You say, well, I've got a good chance of making this charge, but I can't, like, I'd rather not base my entire game upon making this one charge. But of course, when you fail 5, it's like, oh.
But they weren't even 9-inch charges, Tom. They were 5-inch charges.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm saying, sometimes the orcs you just have to stay good.
But even then, the game didn't swing out of.
Were you at least
whack.
on objectives at that point?
No, I was.
Or did you need to get those charges to get onto an objective?
Yeah, exactly that. And I'd held off a turn. To kind of like let, because I was playing GT of course, they're all blips, aren't they? And then they all appear, which is a really fun mechanic to play against, right? What was your experience playing against them?
So obviously you just don't know roughly where the units are spread out. So you know how, if there's like 5 units over there, 5 units over there, and 5 in the middle, you know roughly where they're going to be. But then at the end of if you go first, it's the end of your movement phase. But if they go first at the start of the movement phase or something like that, I kind of went, well, if I give you first turn, you're going to be able to shift your stuff around to shoot what you want. Whereas if I kind of moved in a way that I would have angles on lots of different places on the board. Mm-hmm. So wherever we put his valuable stuff, I'd be able to get an eye on something at least. And I'd rather get onto the objectives first and then shoot at least something rather than just him have like a free shot at whatever he wanted, because he could put whatever he wanted wherever he needed it to go, because he has quite fast, like the mobile, I can't remember what they're called, the cars with the mining lasers on, so they could just deploy somewhere and move quite far.
Ridge runners.
Yeah, ridge runners. They can deploy and then move quite far, so they're probably going to get a good shot on something. So yeah, that was how I kind of tried to mitigate it.
It was an interesting experience, but this is where one of my musings comes, because as to games, musings kind of like start to finish thought. There are 3 secondaries, choose those 3. You're all good, carry on. So like we're all good there. Like design your list to try and obviously win the primary scenario, obviously also. So I really enjoyed that element as well, which was super, super fun. But the key part for me, I think, also some of the most fun I've had playing Warhammer for a very long time. I'd also like to reiterate that. Like, I had 3, as much as I was, like, pissy about those dice rolls, I was like, oh, well, we fucking just hung out for an hour and a half just for me to fail, like, a round of charges. You know, let's be rack. I've had a really, really great time. Like, little units, especially those little units that are trying to deploy scrambers, and they're like, I'm gonna fucking make it! And then, like, they get, like, the weight of an army get fucking dragged on them. Loads of fun. Loads and loads of fun.
I definitely think one of the great things about this new edition is that you can have little units operating and doing things separately away from the rest of the army, whereas last edition, particularly Marines, definitely felt much more castle up and shoot edition, like Marines and Tau.
Yeah. So, but the musing that it's led me to is about terrain, which I've kind of talked about a little bit before.
Before we get onto your musing, can I just say something about the Red Roller?
Oh yeah, please do.
One thing I love about the Red Roller is the image that I get of it in my head when you use the teleport and then the 3d6 charge. Like I'm just imagining it in like an orc battle barge above the planet, like the roller starts
Back to
going
the
at
Future,
speed.
yeah.
Exactly like kind of like Back to the Future style. It like goes really, really fast and then disappears from the ship and then appears on the battlefield going at that speed and then rams into whatever.
Yeah. And just for anyone at home who's listening doesn't know what I'm talking about, so the Battle Wagon, there's a version called the Bonebreaker. Bonebreaker is it does hits on 2s in combat, which is pretty good. It's got basically no guns. You can pay for some, but don't bother with that. And you can put it into not teleport, deep strike. Just in case you try and teleport it at home with your friends. You put it to deep strike, and then out of deep strike you can spend a stratagem, which you could charge on 3d6. But it's fucking brilliant. Then he does mortal wounds on the charge, and then also he's got 12 attacks because you've paid for this kind of relic on the front. So 6 plus 6 if it's unwounded, and it hits on 2s. It's strength 9 minus 2 damage, and it's just fucking amazing fun. Like, and also,
and it's a transport. You can put stuff in it as well, so you could have like a secondary threat inside it.
Well, you could do the secondary threat, but then I don't think you could deep strike it because there's a certain like power limit on the deep striking part. The bit that is
what's it called? The teleporter strat.
Yeah, I used the teleporter strat, but that's got a power level limit on it.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
It does, but it may or may not say something about if a unit is a transport, they also go along. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, but it was just super fun. But it does a job that the Orc Army really lacks in having combat punch. That's like got decent AP and strength. Like that's not Gazzy.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's kind of the equivalent of a bunch of mega knobs, but hits on 2s. So it's way better.
Way better. It's strength 9. Yeah, it's super fun.
And you can apply that stratagem that allows a 3d6 charge, so it's way more consistent to actually hit things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I consider that game to be the one it'll fail, so I'm all right with it. But then also it just poops out 10 boys on an objective and then carries on with its life, which is super fun. Anyway, so I've had loads of fun playing 40k. It's awesome. But that did get me to my one bit of musing this week. Cue music for the musing section.
Bob's musings
is that I still don't know what fucking terrain to use. Now, so we've got like Nick's brought some terrain over. Tom, you brought the terrain over that you got from Ishik from the WTC, which you can get on the World Team Championships website, which is, and he's got the maps, which I'm going to come to in my point in a moment. But one of the things that happened in my game against Mark is I felt like maybe we used too much terrain. But when I was playing Tom and when I was playing Nick, we pretty much just made impassable and then line of sight blocking terrain. And we didn't have anything that was breachable, which was pretty important. The reason that it was pretty important when I played against Mark, who had quite a few vehicles in his list, but he specifically had some pretty good combat units that were infantry. Will Dockerell, oh man, thanks for donating 35 pounds to the show. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Oh man,
that's really cool.
That is sweet as. I promise you we'll use that for something super useful. Oh man, thanks, Will.
Like buying me some more Necrons.
Yes, one Silent King for Nick. He's throwing me off now. My point was that
Mark. So when you played Mark, you had lots of terrain which was breachable, which you had lots of combat troops, and were they just like, because it's breachable, they can just float through that like as if it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. But actually, it was really important that we had that on the board. Previously, I'd have been like, fucking just move around. But actually, it let his infantry move up to something, move through something, and still be... So he was able to, like, the stuff that is really going to struggle in an open field, like, ignoring if you're custodians or marines, are going to have, like, that opportunity. So we put that on the board, and I was like, that's actually really, really useful. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I encourage people to definitely make sure they also use that as well.
Now, I think that's... Sorry, I had a
No,
musing.
Yeah, go for it. Please
I think
muse.
if because now in this edition, being resilient on a like so vehicles have got a bit of a boost because they can now shoot into combat and they're quite resilient to sit on objectives. They can shoot people off,
Hmm.
and infantry like that are probably more of a disadvantage. Does that style of terrain help balance things in their favor a little bit as well?
Yeah, loads. Like as soon as
So,
he said it, he was like,
but
"Oh, can we have some stuff be breachable?" I looked at his army and I was like, "Yeah, man, of course." Like, actually, that makes loads of sense for you controlling the board and moving around the board.
yeah,
So anyway,
yeah.
we haven't got like I would say the perfect setup of terrain at the T Sports Arena. I have some 40k terrain. We've got
For 40k specifically, right?
for 40k specifically, and what I mean by that is that it has a certain shape, and then more important, like, and we'll get onto that in a moment. It has a certain shape and a certain height, but also that it's the right amount in the right dimensions is mainly what I'm thinking. Um, Oh, thanks, Will. Oh, Will really wants to buy me. I promise you, Will. I'll get a takeaway. I don't know what takeaway I'll get. I think I might treat myself to a Chinese, which would be lovely.
There you
So
go.
thanks.
Rob can eat tonight. Hooray!
Yeah. Right. So, what was my point?
You know, Rob's just going to buy a massive bottle of jam with that.
That'll do him for at least a week. He'll just sit there in his closet with a spoon.
I wonder what the biggest. I wonder what the biggest jam you can buy is, or the fanciest jam. Oh, that's a great question. Winner. So Logan says the good thing about terrain rules is you can just slap whatever keyword you want on it to make it playable. You can. Okay. So that led me to go into the WTC site to look at the most recent terrain maps done by Ishik. If you go again, check on that on for the WTC and look at those terrain maps. And I looked at them, right, and they're really, really, really useful. Like, they've got like the size dimensions, which is excellent. So if you're going to run a 3-story building, which is something that would be obscuring, but could still be breachable, it's like 9 inches by 5 inches. A 2-story building, if you're going to do the same thing, whatever, is 9 inches by 5 inches. And if you're going to do a forest, which are actually pretty important because, and again, they don't have to have trees. More on that in a moment. Again, that's a 9 inches by 5 inches base. So that's, you're shooting through it. You can see through it, but you're shooting through it, so you might just want to hit. And then if you're going to run containers, those are 5 inches by 2.5 inches. So those are the differences. Neil, big shout out to Neil in the chat, part of the WTC crew, says also big shout out to the Alliance Open guys for their terrain maps and MDF terrain. Okay, so yeah, I'll throw that out there as well. Anyway, so I went on there to look at those. I was like, right, I'm going to design myself at the studio. I'm going to build some terrain, which is super exciting. I don't know if I want to... Do you want me to give you the title for one of my bits of terrain? My board, Nick? It's going to be the Titan Graveyard.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Twitter exclusive.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. But there's... hey, Chaff Hunter. However, I have a bit of a problem. So there is a criticism I do have of the terrain maps in that they are all just industrial boards. Does that make sense? So, like, what I mean by that is if you remember, if you think of a classic 40k ruins, which is like normally like an L-ish shape, it normally has a couple of levels, which I don't necessarily think I have to agree with in this situation, but they have a couple of levels, and it normally doesn't have a base, but it takes up the area of 9 inches by 5 inches as like a floor space. But the problem is if I wanted to build, let's say a demon world, what would I do that would be that shape, but would make sense that it would be breachable also? Does that make sense?
Garden of Nurgle.
Huh?
Garden of Nurgle, do it as a hedge.
What, like a 5-inch tall hedge?
Yep.
Yeah, it's an idea, but I think I get your point, Rob, about like you want. Do we need standardized terrain maps, and then how do we make them all narratively fit? How do we all make them mechanically work exactly the same, so we know we're getting a balanced play experience, but how can we also justify them narratively and visually and make them look cool without them all just being the same?
Yeah, because of course I'm talking about doing the 40k Super Series next year, and so the one that I want to design for myself needs to be something that I'm going to work on, that's going to be one of the boards for the Super Series. And if you guys have looked at the Super Series boards for HC Bar. They're phenomenal. They've been designed by like artists. They look really, really, really good. They're super swish. Now, obviously, I'm gonna do these ones, so probably the one I do won't be as good. But I'll try. I'm gonna try super hard. Is the point?
You can delegate though. It'll be cool.
Yeah, but my point
I can
is,
make an Aldar one.
the point is the structural shape needs to also still fit with, because I would like to use those maps that they have available at WTC. I'm pretty much in my head, they're the standard maps that we use for gaming, right?
It is important to note though that all the maps at the WTC are specifically slightly different. So you've got some lighter ones and some heavier ones, rather than it just being here's a similar map over and over again that fulfills the same role.
Yeah, and also transitionable between missions as well, which is why all that work has been done. It's freely available. You should go check it out and download it, which is why I want to build terrain to suit that condition, if that makes sense, structurally. But I don't want it to. I don't want to keep making terrain that is just fucking cityscapes all the time, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my only musing, in that I'm super excited, but it got me. I felt like all of the games, the terrain was a big deal, but I wasn't comfortable that the terrain was right. Does that make sense? That might be a bit like autistic of me.
I get you.
No, I think so. I get that feeling. Like, I think I've had a few games where we've got kind of partway through and either something's got shot off really early, or there's been some situation where I've been thinking, I don't know, did we set up that wrong? Was that like, did we do that? Do we have enough of that? Or is there too much? Is this too symmetrical or compact? I don't know. Yeah, I get the feeling.
Yeah, and which is why I would just like, and like Tom said, again, another excellent thing for those. Like, I'm going to talk about them because they're a free resource for the community that no one else was provided, or maybe someone else was provided, but I don't know. And going into doing coverage of the WTC next year, I'm very, very fucking excited, like, about learning exactly how those boards play, especially the difference between light, medium, and heavy, just like Tom pointed out. So that's also a really fun element as well, is while there's three terrain types, so that if you wanted to play with a lighter board for some reason, like you both had some melee armies, you were like, let's build some lighter boards and go nuts. You've got the option and it's scalable, which I think is also really cool. So I'm going to design one. I'm going to design a really heavy board, is my plan. So I've looked at some of the maps and I've looked at the heavy board, and that's the one I'm going to do. A couple of the other guys are doing the other boards. One of them's going to do light and the other two are going to do medium.
Good idea.
Anyway, my musings is that I want to get those done ASAP, because I've played 3 really fun games of 40k next week. I'd like to play some more next week, but I'm struggling because I feel like I'm not playing in the right place. That's my only negative at the moment, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Tom, what were your thoughts when you played?
No, I just liked it. I was going to talk about what kind of a setup you're going to do, as in how many lights, mediums, and heavies. I also think it might be worthwhile at some point before we go to the WTC to stream it, would just be to play some like scrims, for lack of a better word, where you just get a bunch of dudes down. You play like an 8-man team tournament between those guys, and then you can actually see, or an 8-man team game between those guys, and then you can actually see how it works, right? Specifically with how important it is with pairings when you're building your lists around it.
Massively. Again, I can't thank Tom enough for the conversation we had last year. This year.
One of the things
or 47 years ago?
It was this year, because I was very big this year, specifically with Wales. I had a whole flowchart of how I wanted to design the lists for Team Wales for 2020. And it basically revolved around, okay, these lists have got to be able to work on this board and this type of board. So you wouldn't have like a list that had to work on heavies and lights. You would never have that. Instead, you'd end up with a situation where you'd have literal specialists for certain types, and then ones that could overflow and then move between the boards. Because it's one of the only things you can fully control. You can fully control the mission, but you've got to be able to build to play all 6. You can control the pairings to a degree, but not entirely. The only thing you can really control is knowing what kind of a board you're going to be playing on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Do you think that's changed now, Tom? Obviously, that was because when you were planning that, it was 8th edition, right?
I don't know
how much is it is in importance is the terrain now as opposed to like building lists that go to play the missions and stuff like that. And
firstly, I would be very careful about answering that personally, because I don't think I know enough about the game. I have played very little of 9th edition. I have no idea how to write a list. And I just haven't read enough of the stuff, to be honest. That said,
so out of 10, what would your list building, deployment, and tactics be? And then how would your early game and late game also scale on that?
Late game's always got to be a powerhouse, baby. Let's be honest. So here's my thing, right? Regardless of how important it is, it's still the one factor you can fully control.
Mm.
So if you're prepping properly, you should be definitely prepping around that.
Yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that is like changed up my list. So like the interesting element of the orc list that I've been playing with is it had 2 blocks of 6 mech guns, and you'd be like, oh, you're running a gun line, but that was 500 points on my list. Everything else,
so cheap, bro.
Like it was like everything else was mobile. I had 2 blocks of 30 boys, 10 boys in the red roller, either a WAS bomb. I tried out the Mecha Jet Scrapjet, terrible.
Didn't beat anything into space. What a shit pile of garbage.
No, that's a WAS bomb. How dare you? That's always great. The Mecha Jet Scrapjet like sucks. But like and Gazgul and a Pain Boy and all that. So all of that was stuff that just was going forward. So actually, only 25% of my army was static, like kind of gunliney stuff, and I found it really hampered by the terrain, like super hampered by the terrain. And so I wanted to make sure I got the terrain right because I felt like it was going to change my list, if that makes sense. So like I need to get the terrain right so I can understand what lists I'm actually building because I'm only still spending like, whereas I know like if you look at the tournament results like Harlequins and a bunch of other stuff like mobile shooting, mobile combat, like just mobility is so integral. Like Nick was just moving wave serpents around and whatever, and was just like, oh lol, I'm over here now.
Philfield, our player.
Yeah, he's just everywhere. He was like, oh well, you're only going to be able to move 3 inches next turn. And I was like, yes, so fuck you. Anyway, so it was just really important. Well, it was my musing from the week and watch this space, but I'm going to try and get it done ASAP. I think Nick.
So what? So are you able to give us any more details about your Titan's graveyard then?
Not that I would be willing to tell everyone on air. It's a secret. It's a secret.
Well, so much for being honest. Disgusting.
It's not dishonest. It's just
I know. I'm just being pedantic. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so speaking of dishonest, let's go on to the news. Games Workshop produced a Warhammer community article today, and
also, I feel like that's the wrong segue. I thought you were going to go to the FAQs, but okay.
Oh, okay. I could go anywhere. Where would you like me to go? FAQs or community article? Where do you want to go?
When you give it that build-up, I assume you meant the FAQs, but clearly not.
I'll go wherever you like. Nick, you choose.
All the codexes.
It's nearly your birthday.
Let's go for the FAQs then.
Okay, the FAQs and the codexes. Okay. Well, so 2 bits of news that I haven't asked you two about specifically. I have obviously talked about them on the daily shows, but I would like yours two's opinion, is that one of the things that we discovered on Saturday, I know it's fairly old news now, is that you can no longer buy digital versions of the books. You must buy a physical version of the book to get a code so that you can get the digital version in the app. The digital version in the app will not include the narrative for your army. So if you're going on a trip, obviously you won't be because of COVID, but like, or you're in your house and you would like to not pick up several books and you would just like to read some story on your phone, not possible anymore.
On the toilet, you just like to read some.
Just go to Lexicanum, obviously.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, no, not there. I mean, I don't think they have them written out, do they? In full?
Yeah, there's lots of narrative on Lexicanum, It's fine.
Okay. Well, so I haven't asked you to... Nick, I don't think I've asked you about this. Have I?
Have I? I think I'd just like to remind you that you specifically did the Saturday show with me.
Oh, right. No. So I've asked
Nick
Nick
talked about it for an hour.
Perfect.
Do it again. I want to steal an
opinion. Yeah. We'll get Tom's opinion then.
Tom,
how do you feel about it?
Tom, how do you feel about it?
So, did either of you actually buy any of the digital codices?
Every single one.
Yes.
You bought all the digital ones? Okay.
Every single one.
Because I bought the 2010 Empire book for Warhammer 8th edition.
Nice.
And I read it in Canada, and I had a really hard time actually understanding the formatting. Did the formatting get any better?
Yeah. Yeah, because...
You could write a list from a book and not have to just go skip 50 pages to the point, skip, back to the rule.
I'm not saying that's how good it got.
Yeah.
I'm saying
reading the rules was fine, but the points were a nightmare, and obviously that's a big thing.
And they would always put I don't know. I haven't read the new 40k codex yet. Very excited to do so. I don't like in Age of Sigmar. They put this thing called Path to Glory, which is what Crusade is, but they put it in between your subfaction rules and your battle traits that you normally get for an army. They do that, and then they put and then they do the fucking Path to Glory, and then they do the rest of the rules, and it's like you're like, I don't want these 6 to 8 pages of shit in the middle. Put them somewhere else. Do they put Crusade in between? Does anyone know? Because that would be the best bit.
No, I don't know.
All right, sorry, you were saying, Tom. They don't. I don't know.
No, I was just trying to work out how good they were now, because I never really used them personally, but I suppose it's really frustrating for people who were using like a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Especially like let's say for people with disabilities, let's say where you can struggle to turn a page, then you're also not going to be able to flick through an app very easily, right? Are you?
No.
So,
but one point that I saw made on Twitter by someone was that they said they had, I think like people with dyslexia or like visual impairment or whatever, if they're having a book, someone said that they find it much easier to have like an electronic copy where they can zoom in and make the text bigger. So they were saying I think they wrote like an open letter to Games Workshop.
So it's multiple issues.
This is affecting me for this. Yeah. Please.
It's both physical disabilities as well, where you physically struggle to, like, let's say I'm not very useful with my fingers and I'm going to struggle to turn a page on it. Maybe you can download the app on a tablet, I guess, and then
because again, iBooks has had optimization, like much like very first iBooks was just like basically a PDF reader, like fucking way back in the day. But now iBooks has got some like fucking intense optimization, like the ability to change like the brightness levels. Like all sorts of stuff, like invert the colors, so like the page is black and the text is white. That's really helpful for some people with dyslexia. Like, however, in the app, none of that is available, obviously, and they don't even have it scaled up. So if you buy it on an on an iPad, or no, if you buy it on anything anyway, but if you use it on a tablet, it's just a scaled up version, so it's really shit and pixelated, if that makes sense. So Will Dockerell in the chat says, I'm dyslexic. I find the electronic version easier as I can tint the colours on the screen to make it easier. My favourite is slightly yellow. Yes, it's a huge step backwards. Not that that's not my first.
It's just a bizarre decision, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
I think for me the big story of it is the fact that you have to only buy the paper codex. Like, how do you feel about that, Tom? The fact that the only way you can get rules is to buy the paper codex.
Legally.
I mean, I guess your mate can buy the codex, and then if they don't want to, they can sell you their code.
Do they use the code already? Is it going to be a secondary market of people selling codes?
Secondary codes.
I've not used it on the app. I want to buy my code.
Oh, mate, that's how you make the dollar. You just buy books.
Well, I mean, you could just buy the book yourself. Like, I could buy the Necron book, get the code, and then give the book to someone else. Problem, though, is that the code, again, the digital book doesn't have any of the narrative. It just unlocks the rules for you in the app. So you don't get a full digital version of the codex. You don't get the narrative, you don't get the paint guides, and I know some of you might be like, lol, but I think those stuff are valuable. They're fun, they're inspiring for me, like to flick through and have a look. Like, they help me quite a bit.
I guess I come from a publishing perspective. If you're a collector and you like to read the narrative and what have you, you're normally also someone more likely to buy the physical copy, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a market for that other product as well.
That doesn't follow trends.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that follows. That follows no trends.
Well, okay, so let's put it this way: so why do places like Waterstones now have coffee shops in?
So that people sit and read.
Right, because it's an experience, right? If you're looking for convenience, you end up going to Amazon or something. If you're reading the physical copy, you are looking for an experience. And that's probably the train of thought they're following through on. I would probably say it is more likely that people who want to read the narrative are probably more likely to buy a physical copy of a book so they can sit in their chair and just flick through it and have a lovely relaxing time with a cup of tea. And that's generally what happens. This is my degree.
Can I just say that I love that Tom's idea of people who read books are people if that were true, the Kindle would not have taken off, or
no, that's not so. Oh, okay, I can explain this actually. Yeah, okay. Do you know? So 50 Shades of Grey, You remember that, right?
Wait, but before we go any further, you are willing to just accept that people read books on digital devices?
Yes, I'm not saying there isn't a market for that. I'm saying that this is more common. That doesn't mean that there's no use for the other thing. I'm not dismissing the other thing at all. I'm saying that that's probably the train of thought that they're following. It doesn't mean it's correct to completely dismiss the market of people who want to read narrative on a tablet. I'm saying that they may believe that it's more likely that people who want to read narrative want to have an experience where they're just sat, just chilling and reading the narrative, right?
But you now have just removed one market for no reason.
Yes, I agree. It's a dumb decision.
Okay,
I'm not saying the reasoning is correct. I'm saying that's what the reasoning probably is.
Do you think that's why Games Workshop did it though?
What do you
Because
mean?
they want to give people a good coffee reading experience when they're
No, I never said that.
reading the
No.
narrative.
I want that to be. I now want that to be the reason.
Yeah, I
though.
want a press release. I want a Facebook Live.
I don't know what the specific details of why they've cut it off are, but I would suspect that they think that the vast majority of people who buy the physical books rather than just go through the rules, for example, via the app, are people who want to read the narrative.
I don't think so. I think they're just trying to stop people pirating.
I'm saying that's what they think. I don't mean. I'm not saying that's correct.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
And therefore, they cut off the other thing to save costs because they're weird.
Yeah. So you're not in any way saying that here is a valid reason for it. Here,
no, I'm saying I'm not saying it's a good reason. I'm saying that's
you're like, here are some fucked reasons they might have to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Like, is there a better one? Remember, this is.
I think the better one.
This topic.
I think the better reasoning is they've turned around, and as Logan is saying in the chat, someone said, iTunes has taken 30% of the book sales off us. And they're like, fuck that.
Yeah,
like,
fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys. And then also there's a double down there. If you have to go to a store, not that you could also order it to your house, but if you have to go to a store and pick up the book, then obviously you
pick up some dice.
You might as well pick up some dice.
What getting around that by selling their books as EPUBs on the Black Library website, specifically for Kindles?
Yes, they were. Yeah, but then they stopped doing that.
Oh, they stopped doing that too. That sucks.
Yeah.
They should have kept it.
Yeah. Right.
Logan's just tweeted and tagged us both and said, "It's me, I'm the prick," and it's just a shelf full of books and half of them are in cellophane.
See, it's people like Logan. Listen, if you're someone at home right now who has a book of 40k codexes with a bunch of them in cellophane, you're the twat who is now the reason that I can't buy a digital version of the book. And you're a monster. You're a monster, is what you are.
I'm really frustrated by this because I don't want to buy the narrative and the painting guides. I just want the rules.
Nick, I'm so confused by you as a person. Because, like, when you're in the game, you're like, let's start telling the story of these models. You're like, I fucking love Mordheim. You're like, I'm doing a D&D campaign. And then I'm like, and then I'm like, Nick, what about 40k? I'm like, what about 40k narrative? You're like, nah, fuck that. Sounds shit.
Now, one of the reasons why that is because when you're playing D&D and when you're playing a game and when you're painting your own models, you're creating your own narrative within a setting that is created. I don't want, I know obviously the codexes come with some of the flavour for that setting, but that's their narrative that I don't necessarily care about. Like when we're playing in a game, I more get into my own narrative of our own games, and the setting is like the backdrop to it rather than the specific stories.
Okay, all right, I believe you, I guess.
And I would prefer to have the option of buy the rules on their own, and if I want to read the story, buy the story on its own in a book, or if I want the artwork, because I fucking love the artwork, buy some of the artwork books. Like have a massive book with loads of cool artwork in for 40k or specific factions.
The artwork is like.
Speaking of which, it's fantastic that where you live so close to Warhammer, just because you can buy artwork.
It's
I've got a pile down there.
The artwork's brilliant. Like I personally think the rules should be free. Fuck that off. And then, we should just be buying the narrative / artwork stuff as a book. That should be the thing anyway.
Particularly how the rules are at the minute.
Yeah. Anyway. Neil says, I think something Games Workshop is really missing out on is the fact that, yes, a lot of players pirate codexes, but they usually do that just to keep their knowledge up. Those same players still own codexes of their armies they actively play. They generally do. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it was anything to do with piracy. And listen, Like, I don't know when pirates started, but they're not stopping anytime soon.
Also, I'd like to point out that all of the leaks we got for 9th edition with all the Ramraj stuff.
Yeah.
None of it was screenshots from a tablet. It was all pictures.
It was all pictures from a book. Thank you, Tom. And all of the Necron and Space Marine codexes, and all the Space Marine Necron codexes I've read this week have also been photos from a book. So you can't stop the rock, as they say. Anyway, right, okay. So that was the news I thought I'd ask you about, but I know that's a bit old news. The other news, obviously, is both Necrons. There's so much news. Necrons and the Marine Codex went on pre-order, which meant we got a slew of content creators giving us their feelings and thoughts on what they thought the new stuff was going to be like, where they thought stuff fit into the meta that doesn't exist, like, all of those things. Nick, Tom, you check out any of that stuff? Take anything in? Absorb anything?
Yeah, I spent a lot of one of the days last week talking through one of the newer guys on Team Wales about a Necron list that he was using, and how it might work in the new book from obviously all the stuff that's been coming out, right? Then we discovered it was illegal. So all the research I've been doing into this bonkers list, like, oh, really?
What was illegal about it?
You couldn't take that many vaults because they're Catan shards.
Yes, because wait, is it maxed out at 4?
You can take 1 Catan shard per detachment.
Yeah. And
of course, so that means if you want to take, you can take 1 vault per detachment, but obviously it's super heavy, so you need to work out how you're going to fit that in there.
Okay, all right. So there's a real opportunity there to do something cool, but you messed it up.
I mean, we just can't do it because the rules just don't let us.
It's just not fair. Not fair, eh?
I mean, it probably is for the benefit of all that we were not allowed to do that.
More than likely. Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Nick, did you absorb any content? Is there anything else?
I haven't really watched any back reports. No. And wait, I a lot of the Warhammer content that I can do is like podcasts. I've not really caught up on any podcasts that have talked about the new books yet.
Okay.
But I've not watched any YouTube back reports or anything like that, really.
Okay. So I think we could double these up with the FAQs, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I'm just going to again shout out that at this point, I can't do 40k without Goonhammer. Like, I just can't do it. Or more importantly, I don't want.
It's a good resource, isn't it, for them to like. That's some of the reasons why I like listening to podcasts. Is that people absorb information and regurgitate it out to you.
Yeah, and again, it's not that like you read the thing and those are the facts, but they're a good groundwork, because one of the things that they do really well, unlike us, is that they are very much like, here is just the information on how it's out, and then here's an opinion piece afterwards. So it's just like, there are 6 sub-factions for Necrons. Sweet. Like, they give you that information. We think these ones are ones that we like, but like they come after. So if you don't agree with the opinionate pieces, you can just skip them. I don't. I like to read those as well. But it's a good structure, so they give you more of a blow by blow. Because when you get, I don't know how many fucking FAQs it was that got dumped on us. The FAQs get dumped, and you're like, holy shit, that's a lot to pick through and organize. And then you jump on there, and they go, look, these are the 4 changes in this, and I'm like, that's all I really want to know. Does that make sense? And that's that's invaluable. Invaluable. And I think that they're brilliant people. I think you should go support them in any way you can. Like, I literally can't. And I don't want to do the game without it now. I don't want that. Even if I don't agree. Like, remember when we talked about when they did all the new factions in 9th edition, and we talked about orcs, and they were like, orcs are in a shitty place. And I was like, I don't agree with that at all. I think they're just talking about one specific American version of playing orcs.
You mean looters?
No, the shock attack guns. The terrible one.
I was going to say, looters are bloody shit.
Yeah. So the other thing. Yeah. Anyway, so you don't have to agree.
On that, I think that goes back to a point that Neil Kerr made earlier about people keeping up, having codexes for their own armies and keeping up with the other armies. I think Goonhammer and their articles are really good for doing that. So I haven't looked at all the Marine stuff because I'm not bothered about playing Marines at the minute. So I've not really looked at any FAQs necessarily. But if I wanted to keep up with what's going on without having to read the FAQ and understand the army to know the change, I could look at a Goonhammer article for whatever faction of Marines and get a summary of it nice and quick.
Yeah.
So,
It's just excellent, and I think that because they just give you a groundwork to have the conversation for yourself, especially us as content creators. I think it's a really good starting point. You just go, okay, cool, I'll read that. Then I'll actually read the codex, although technically we shouldn't be able to read the codex until Saturday.
We just read it by other content creators, right?
Yeah,
By
right,
proxy. Yeah,
but it's all over the internet, right? And it's just a really good place to jump off. So I think it's just worth again bigging those guys up, and they don't pull the punches, which I also think is really excellent. And so that's been my resource. I've tried watching a few of the bat reppers or live bat reppers to a degree, but I think that the medium in which that information is delivered for me is not quite as useful, is all I'm going to say, and a bit elongated. It's a bit elongated in gathering that data. So anyway, right, so the 2 books came out. That's the news, or pre-order. Didn't technically come out, technically. And then we got the FAQ dump, right, which was fucking massive. Tom, do you want to take us through what happened, or Nick? At least you want to tell us what technically happened.
Nick, do you want to do Dark Angels or do you want to do Imperial Fists?
Or can we just talk about like why loads of FAQs needed to come out first?
Well, yeah. Well, as a Deathwing player, I'll go first, shall I, Tom?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Long-time Deathwing player. So obviously the new Space Marine Codex is coming out at the weekend, and some of the supplements that are going to go on top of the new Space Marine Codex were previously came out after the old Space Marine Codex, so they needed to do FAQs to adjust how those supplements worked when bolted onto the new one.
Yes.
And
perfect.
it's a little bit confusing because there's also Vigilus campaign supplements that also apply to those armies and codexes and supplements that also needed a FAQs as well to make sure they work with the new codex. But some of them are getting, like Blood Angels, are getting a new supplement soon.
Yes, Blood Angels.
Also, just to compound that, for what it's worth, all the books got FAQs just to update weapon profiles like power swords and things like that, right? Just to be consistent with the new standard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so,
I think something.
Oh,
yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
No, you go.
I was going to say, so because Blood Angels, I can't remember who the new supplements are. Is it Blood Angels Death Watch?
Death Watch isn't a supplement, it's Blood Angels and Space Wolves, right?
Space Wolves, so they gave kind of like Dark Angels like it was like was it Dark Angels? They just got it wasn't like an FAQ, was it? It was like a redo of their supplement kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm confused as to what we mean now.
Okay. Well, who's explained it?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, they released the Marine Codex. In the Marine book, there are loads of weapons and profile changes, which they have to roll out across all of it, otherwise it becomes fucked. So, they then had to go back, and since the release of that Marine book, they released a bunch of supplements and Psychic Awakening, all of which had to be retconned, and so they did all of that. So they brought Marine weapon profiles and other stuff into line in a giant FAQ. However, there were older books like Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and some other books, which were codexes of themselves, which are technically currently still legal, if that makes sense. So because those are supplementary codexes which haven't been invalidated by the release of the new book. I agree with you. All of you who are listening who are like, what the fuck? Agreed. Yeah.
This is why. So earlier in the show, I said I haven't really caught up on all the Goonhammer articles and FAQs, and it's this reason because it's a really confusing time right now. Because the codex isn't out, I haven't read that. Like, there's all these FAQs and stuff going on. Like, you can't get access to the rules easily. You've got to get a dodgy copy off the internet or like decipher it through Goonhammer articles and Warhammer community articles and piece things together like a patchwork of confusion. It's a confusing
Frankenstein's
time.
FAQ just made up of bits from all over the place.
Yeah, so effectively what's currently legal is the new Marine book. That's what's currently legal. The FAQs, which change elements of previous supplements and Psychic Awakening. However, previous main offshoot books, like Blood Angels are an example there, those are still also weirdly legal as well, even though many of those things have been changed by updates. Okay, so it's a weird time. I understand absolutely. If you were a Blood Angel,
This is like the activation wars in Age of Sigmar.
Well, it's simpler. It's simpler. I don't want people to get bogged down or scared or worried. If you want to play Blood Angels as an example, you just need the Marine book, you need the FAQ, and then if you wanted to, although probably not useful, you could look back at the Blood Angels Codex as well. I don't know why you would want to, but you could do that. Oh wait, the Blood Angels book isn't valid from Saturday. Thank you, Scrivo. In which case, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Get the new Marine Codex, and then pick a faction, and then get their FAQ.
Go.
Okay. Yeah. Codexes and Psychic Awakening are replaced by the FAQ. Okay. I'm almost certain there's something you can look back at as well. There's something.
To be fair, the entire Space Wars book has always been an FAQ, so it's just basically no change.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Imagine being a Space Wolf player.
So the FAQs arrived, and there were some pretty large structural changes. You saw things get extra wounds across the board, which is interesting. You saw things like Wolfen, though, you're talking about Space Wolves, not get an additional wound. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, you saw many weapon profile changes that effectively it's a new FA. It's a new edition. Effectively, if you're playing those armies. Now, the interesting element is that Chaos Space Marines, who, because you would think that some of their stuff would be brought in line, things like Tau, AdMech, things that weren't just Marines, they also got their weapons adjusted as well. Because some of them have, like, flamers that have got, like, longer range now, because flamers have changed range and all sorts of stuff. So you saw some of those other armies also get additional changes. Some. Some.
Do you know a unit that didn't get the extended flamer range?
Please tell me.
Burner Boys.
Unlucky.
No, Burner Boys did not get it. But I don't think Burner Boys deserved it, Nick. Let's be real. And so...
They're clearly playable. Nick was just having success with them, so you don't need any more buffs.
No more buffs.
I'm not having any success with Burner Boys.
Shut up, Nick.
Right, so the... where am I at? Okay, however, there has been some problems in these FAQs, because that leads us on to two different conversations from the news. There is so much news, which is why at the top of the show we said everything is news, in that they've effectively redesigned a dozen armies. Like, so the game is, like, restarted, effectively. Like, not for some, but for quite a few, you know, that like some fundamental changes. You've got things like Chaos Space Marines who didn't get an additional wound each, which is really weird. Yeah, like... They didn't get weird. Like,
we know it's weird because we know it's coming because they've told us, but we're in that transition period where they've got the weapon profile changes, but not the wound yet.
Yes, it's super fucked. It's super fucked. Anyway, so, and then the two conversations that you and I, well, that Nick and Tom are going to have with us now, is that what happened is that in these changes, they also have fundamentally changed the shape of how some of these armies play, which... Normally with a new book, you would expect your army to, like, maybe improve. That would be true, and maybe change how it plays, I guess, because units inside the book get better or worse. But in this situation, they've changed how they play fundamentally. Nick, do you want to talk about Imperial Fists?
Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was. So this conversation has come from another Goonhammer article where they wrote an opinion piece about the FAQ, how it affected his Imperial Fist army, and essentially he'd bought and built an Imperial Fist army to play a certain way, and now the rules have changed, so his army cannot function as it's been built, which is obviously a bit annoying for him.
Specifically here, the FAQ is that they've changed the abilities from the Legacy of Dawn, which is while the Devastator Doctrine is active, you get +1 damage against vehicles and buildings when firing with your bolt weapons or what have you. Now it only applies to weapons that have a strength characteristic of 7 or more. So it completely screws the entire bolter aspect of the Imperial Fists.
It does, but it was only... I mean, I think he does say in the article, he doesn't think the actual change is necessarily bad for balance in the game, because the way that army affected the game is because turn 1, you could have loads of like artillery that didn't need line of sight and then lots of shooting. If it's 8th edition and an open battlefield where you can see lots of stuff, you can turn 1 Alpha Strike and do a fuck ton of damage to someone. Whereas, and then because obviously they changed now the tactical doctrines cause that used to be all game, but now it was changed to be only one turn, and now it's one turn only with a specific list of weapons. Which yes.
So a couple of things on that. Firstly, I think let's take this from a narrative perspective. Imperial Fist is very bold focused on a narrative, right? No, seriously.
Yeah.
And the hobby perspective.
You've just taken that out, and let's say, okay, let's just concede that okay, maybe it was something that you need to do to balance the game out, right? But you didn't, because Imperial Fists aren't rolling up on everybody and just whacking them with one turn of bolter shots in turn one, are they?
I mean, they were doing fairly.
They were before the
not
FAQ.
Anymore. Yeah,
They were
not with
that
the
FAQ.
obscuring terrain rules and stuff.
So you don't even need to do it. And so what you've actually done is you've nuked this faction's entire identity because for some reason you decided it was necessary when absolutely not. It was never necessary to do this. If it were absolutely
was it more specifically aimed at like whirlwinds and thunderfires though, rather than the bolt weapons? They could have just said, it applies to bolt weapons only.
Right, so then it's a lazy FAQ then, because you could just say, as you say, it just applies to bolt weapons. So now it's applying to heavy bolters, it's applying to bolt guns, and it's applying to all that kind of guff, right? Alternatively, you could say bolters and last cannons and what have you. Or you could even just say, I know you couldn't say heavy weapons because that applies to the assault cannon or what have you, which is weird. But at that point, it's just a lazy FAQ. You completely gutted.
Is the assault cannon a heavy weapon?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I know. It's completely, you've basically just like smacked their entire identity as a faction for no reason whatsoever. There was no need to do this from a nerf perspective.
But it also touched on a wider point that we've actually mentioned before when we talked about Frugal Hammer, where we talked about FAQs, sweeping FAQ changes, just completely nerfing or changing your army.
Right.
So why?
We have this tweet that you linked us earlier today, right, about how you need to be so careful with your rules changes. With one paragraph that wasn't necessary to be there, you have completely wrecked a bunch of people's collections, assuming that they bought those collections because they wanted to play the game a certain way. Of course, many people will buy Imperial Fist armies because they like the narrative or because they're Imperial Fist 1 tricks. And that hurts for those guys when they want to play the games, but it's not the primary reason for why they're buying those models. They're buying those models because they like those models. But for everybody who's bought an Imperial Fist faction because they like the way Imperial Fist play. Because Imperial Fist are the
I think Tom's point's super valid for a bunch of different reasons. If you move beyond Marines, like for example, like if you were playing Salamanders, you would expect Flamers and Melter style weapons to be better in Salamanders, so you would buy heavier into those for your collection because you're on theme. But the rules should support the theme. Like if you were talking Orcs, for example, you would expect you would put your combat units as I don't know, Evil Sons, because that plus to charge is actually really, really valuable. Or your vehicles maybe as Evil Sons because you want them to go fast for some reason. Whereas like your Grots, obviously you're going to paint them all red. Now I know it doesn't work quite the same, but like effectively they have almost the same model range with Marines. So the only thing that really differentiates them, the reason that you paint them yellow as opposed to painting them green, is because the yellow guys fire their bolters well and they stand still. Like that's their thing. Whereas the green guys burn stuff, right, and hammer stuff, and they've like re-roll. When you change how the army works fundamentally, you do invalidate the collection because you built it to play that way. Like you wouldn't build a Tau army hoping to build a melee force, right? Like that's not what you would do, and you wouldn't buy loads of Khorne Berserkers hoping to build a shooty Chaos Space Marine list. So if they gave you loads of buffs to shooting for Chaos Space Marines, you'd be like, I'm not sure, I'm so confused. Do you know what I mean? And if you gave Tau loads of melee buffs, so it's a super valid point.
Yeah, Khorne Berserkers shoot twice rather than fight twice each turn.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you paint a bunch of Orc boys red, I mean, it may be because you just like painting boys red. Alternatively, it might be because you like the idea of lots of speedy boys. Let's say you've got a Speed Freaks army. Yeah. And I like the idea of these speedy boys just speeding around. Imagine if they took all the Speed Freaks rules out of that.
Yeah,
it's basically the same thing. Imperial Fists, they are dudes that stand on walls and they shoot lots of bolters at people and they kill vehicles and buildings. Well, now you've just taken half of it out. Now they just kill the vehicles and buildings, but you don't get any of the bolters. So now you just take all the bolters off the Imperial Fist, which are bolter batteries.
They stand in the wall and they kill buildings with specific weapons.
And also, now you just don't take bolters. Because, in fact, rather than taking bolters, you are now incentivized to take things that are not bolters.
Mm. However, let's turn the conversation. So that's the conversation about these changes, and the problem is when they're releasing these FAQs, and as far as I saw, there was no design conversation had with the audience about what we're looking to aim and what we're looking to achieve. The article makes a very, very solid point, which we've made on the show many times, in that there's a trust relationship that you do have with the company, in that if I do design my units to do X job, for example, how long will they stay valid to do X job? Because there's obviously the cost of purchasing it, but there's also building and producing that unit to do that job. Like you're like, if you are aiming to game and not just roll around with your mates and have a good time, but even then, if you wanted your shooty units to be shooty, you would buy the shooty version of the units.
I know,
and
right?
Paint them shooty, right?
And then what if you like took a unit of shooter boys, right? And then GW released an FAQ that said the shooters were now no longer used as guns; they were instead clubs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway.
Like in Dawn of War, where we're just whacking them with the gun. It's just like, what are you doing?
Okay,
like
so
this is actually making me a bit worried about. So my, I think a good example is my Wraith army that I'm building. I know in my army I have I've got like 15 infantry that aren't Wraiths,
Nick. Fuck off.
The majority of the army.
We're going to make him toughness too, Nick, because it doesn't matter what the narrative says, okay?
Fucking Eldar. Go on, carry on with your point, sorry.
So what I'm saying is my Eldar army that I've built, I've wanted to play Eldar for a while, and I've been playing Eldar and painting and building Eldar quite a lot. And it's mostly Wraiths. So I've gone along that like aesthetic and play style. So it's going to take me ages to build and get it fully painted. So I don't know at this point if by the time I get to that end goal, that end result of having it fully painted and based and on the table, is it still going to play the same? Am I still going to enjoy it and like it?
Which is the whole point of that article, and the whole point of like keeping
super worried about it.
And it's the whole point of keeping consistent themes for how an army plays. An army should be designed to play away from inception and continue to play that way, so that you're just adding elements into it, right?
Yeah, you just enable it in a way that's helpful for the game rather than just removing it.
Yes,
but they don't always like, it's not all bad. That like the Necrons, like they've changed quantum shielding, but they've not like got rid of reanimation protocols. A lot of people have been saying, "Oh, I wish they just gave them like a 5+ DPR."
No, yeah,
instead.
That was good.
But they kept the reanimation protocols aspect of it, which was fantastic. They stuck with that like play style and mechanic and theme, and just improved the rule and made it better.
Yeah, that was great. They did a fantastic job on that. Well done, Games Workshop. This is shit.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, because do you not honestly feel sometimes there's right, let's make sure we've worked out how to do Necrons, and then they spend a while on it, and you think, okay, like we've done a whole bunch of design, and then they go, what about Marines? They're like, just fucking intern Dave, do a couple of rules and we'll work it out.
Who the fuck signed off on this? Like, who decided? Did this even go past anybody?
Wait, but let's do the flip side of it, because there is a flip side. There is a flip side which isn't a negative; it's just a net positive, and this is for Dark Angels, right? Because the flip side.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was going to say, to answer Tom's question, what I think happened is two people in the Vols team, the boss was playing with Dark Angels, and then the intern was playing with Imperial Fists.
Yeah,
the Imperial Fists smashed the Dark Angels, and then in the next FAQ, this has happened.
I mean, you say that. I can guarantee this did not go past the playtesters.
Oh, well, whatever. Like, or it did, but they didn't listen. The conversation's a new point. It's gone through quality control anyway, right? And
it's gone through a portion of a quality control. You stick it past Dave in packaging, and that's quality control, is it?
Hey, Dave in packaging is a good fucking guy. He's supporting his family and he's working hard.
He knows his rules.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so can we talk about the positive? Because when they randomly just decide to fuck stuff up, which is fun, they then inadvertently just make stuff really, really, really good. Dark Angels. Yeah. So
Paint your Marines a different colour. Hooray!
So does anyone know what the exact rules are that changed to make Dark Angels terrifying?
Basically, the inner circle keyword was it a keyword before? I don't know if it was a keyword before, but basically the inner circle keyword means that you can only be wounded on a 4, 5, or 6. So transhuman physiology used to be a stratagem for 2 CP where you pick one infantry unit that could only be wounded on a 4 or more. They've just given that rule to multiple units and characters for free all the time.
Specifically not Black Knights, though. It's specifically only infantry inner circle units. So you can only apply it to things like Deathwing Knights, which are behooded Terminators with big Storm Shields, for example, which are...
Or Deathwing Terminators.
Yeah, those guys. Those guys. The ones with the shields. So now you've got a +1 to your armor save with Storm Shield. You've got a 4+ invulnerable save base, and you can only be wounded on a 4+.
Yep. Yeah.
Who decided that was a good idea?
It's so good. It's so good. It's my favorite
to
thing.
The Dark Angels players. Maybe Scrivo will look like he's actually good at the game for once.
What I love though I love that duality. Like, I'd pay money to have filmed those two hobbyists. You know, like sat at a table. Like, I want to do like an interview style shot, like a cut, right? Yeah, and I just want to read out the rules as I go through. And then go like, and then the Imperial Fist guy be like, "What the fuck?" And then the Dark Angel guy starts sweating. He's like, "Oh shit, what's gonna happen to me?" And then they get, and then the guy's like,
was also just pointed out, you could get a 5+ field of pain on them from the banner.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Who decided that was a good idea?
Or the apothecary. 6 up,
Yes.
6 up, apothecaries give a 6+ DPR now in a aura.
Yeah, they do.
So
they
even
really
that.
It's fine. It's just I need to start drinking. Okay.
that's not the response.
Like, I've got a bottle of wine down there that I got for Christmas from one of the parents. And I don't have a corkscrew, but we need to find a brattle or something. I'll use my Citadel knife on it. It'll be fine.
Could someone clip that, please? Could someone say, "I need to start drinking"? I just want that as like a 5-second clip.
Hey,
please.
you can't get on Warhammer. Never mind. You can't be a good player unless you have a high blood alcohol level. Okay.
Nice meta joke there. Anyway, so the flip side of that, if you to our humble listener at home and people watching, is that obviously Dark Angels have come out of this fucking cry laughing their way to the bank, yeah, which is brilliant. And so, and again, we're in that window now of 2 weeks where, don't forget where they FAQ'd how Lookout Server worked, which is a pretty fundamental rule in the game, for 2 weeks, and then they've switched it up, so that's good. They fixed that now. That was nice. Like, flip-flop. One back, one forward. And so...
Yeah, because I feel like, so they have, I mean, they've already got a rule that's like this in existence that people weren't kicking a fuss about, and it's, I can't put exactly the word is indomitable or something like that. One of the successor chapter traits is where you can only be wounded on a 1 or a 2. Mm-hmm. Like, do we think that maybe it was meant to be a 1 or a 2, or they're intentionally making it this crazy strong?
Oh, no way is any of this intentional. They would have just thought this was medium power. Like, fucking God knows what's going on in that department at all times.
Can I point out, sorry again, apparently owns 20 Deathwing Terminators now. I have no idea why.
They're great.
Did you just
models.
buy them on the internet?
They look great. They look great. I will fight you on this all day. They look brilliant. Do you not think they look good?
Oh, they did look good. I was asking him why he has 20.
They look good. I don't know. 2 to 10.
Long time Dark Angels player.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so the FAQs are out, but we are now in a 2-week period where there's loads of stuff to unpack about that, as well as the codex releases, and we should be expecting FAQs. Some of which, as we've seen in the past, have been fundamentally big changes. So it's really tough to do a review of a codex, or it's really tough to break stuff down right now, because we don't know how significant those changes will be over the next 2 weeks, because they could be like minimal, or they could be significant. Because really the question you're asking yourself right now is how do I deal with 10 or 20 Dark Angels Terminators? Is the question you should be asking yourself about the meta generally. Yeah, Nick, thoughts? No, he's no thoughts right now.
Oh.
But
there is no meta, Rob. It's fine.
That's
Don't
true.
know what it is.
I mean, I'd like to have like a series of things that tell me about the meta. That'd be useful.
That would be useful. That would be useful. But my
Hey,
point
Nikos,
is,
have you heard about the WTC Squadcast? It's an affiliated Honest Wargamer podcast talking about the meta in lots of different countries from around the
really?
world. Yeah, we've had people on from Sweden, from
That'll
Poland,
be useful when I'm doing my European
Scotland
tour
recently,
next year.
for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing, though. I often say America steals our list from the UK, but the UK steals our list from Poland. So if you want to be ahead of your game, you go and listen to the podcast and steal your
So-
Polish list today.
How
true.
far behind are America from Poland then? If they're 6 months
year.
behind us,
a year.
I mean, they've got a gaming house now, so we'll have to find out, I guess. We don't really know. We need to get some 40k gaming houses in the UK sorted.
Yeah. Right. So I've got one. Let's go. So yeah, that's everything that's happened news-wise, like with the 40k stuff. With more news to come. The release of these books is going to be big. There's loads and loads of stuff. There's loads and loads of stuff to still unpack about this. People will be playing battle reports already online. There's loads to break down and discuss. Next week we're going to talk about the Necron Codex, and we're going to do our traditional looking at roles in that book. But then hopefully it doesn't seem like there's actually tons in that book to FAQ, or I haven't seen lots of scuttlebutt about the need for a lot of FAQs so far, which is actually a really cool thing because normally. And that's one of the things we do have to applaud them on. Some of the rules look tighter. They don't necessarily hit the balance mark, but they've at least hit the tighter mark where you understand how things work. Tom will never have to explain dark matter crystal to anyone ever again. And that's important. Tom?
I had to explain dark matter crystal to someone?
No, you don't.
Oh, you mean the reinforcements thing?
You don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Good. Thank you.
Good.
I can't be asked to learn the rules.
yeah, they've started putting more examples in the rules as well, which is always helpful.
Yes, they have started doing examples, which again is excellent work for those guys. Okay. All right. So next week we'll do the Necron actual book, and I think that's the bulk of the news without getting into the minutiae of the rules. And the minutiae of the rules is a fucking big show. So we maybe will do that, we could do that next week instead, or we could do the Necron book instead. But the minutiae of the rules is pretty massive. And again,
I really fancy doing the Necron book, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, same thing.
Yes, as do I.
As do I. Okay. So one of the other things that's happened for our international listeners is there's been a bit of a really tough time happening in the news recently because the lockdown that's happened in the UK is pretty specific. A lot of our pubs and restaurants, but most specifically the arts have been massively hit. People aren't able to do theatre performances. There's all the support structure around that. Gigs are a really big deal. So there's a lot of real big so it's really hit a lot of creative people and artists in a particularly big way, which has been pretty tough. So one of the things that happened recently is a pretty insensitive politician. I don't know his name, but fuck him. Said something. This isn't getting political. I'm leaning to a point. I just want you guys to know. One of the things he said was that all the artists are going to have to retrain, and then find a different job. Okay. So last year, Games Workshop hired an events manager for their global gaming, and they aren't doing that because of Rona. So it turns out that he's moved into being a article content creator for the Warhammer community site. Which is nice to see he's taking that advice and retraining. Yeah, that's what I like to see. He's taking that advice on board, he's pivoting, and he's going, do you know what I can't do? I can't do whatever I was going to do with events, so I'll pivot, and I'll just write community articles on the artist, on the community site.
I mean, you can write some articles on the Honest Wargamer if you want.
Yeah. And so that led to our very first, the last bit of news, is the introduction of a new segment on Warhammer Community called MetaWatch. Nick.
Yeah, MetaWatch. It was the inaugural.
Which
I had to Google to fully understand. So it means making the beginning of an institution, activity, or period of office. So this is going to be an institution for Games Workshop, MetaWatch.
It is. And is there a goal or a specific target to
what meta are they watching? Are they just I said this Nick's marketing potential knows no bounds. He's very good at ending up everywhere.
But what is the actual, like, what is it? Watching the meta?
What is it? Well,
I believe they're watching
from
Meta,
reading the article,
but-
I don't know what MetaWatch is. They said
It's
it's the inaugural
I
MetaWatch.
think it's just interviewing
A
famous people.
series, it seems to be giving a spotlight to famous people to tell people what is good at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah, but not tell anybody what is bad. And all the good stuff is always the new stuff.
Yeah, it's everything is awesome, and this are the good units in the game. That's what it is.
So this is no shade thrown at Nick, because like Nick's a prodigious content creator. He does loads of really, really solid work. I had a conversation with him at the weekend. Actually, we had a phone call.
He's a fun dude, isn't he? He's a
nice
fun
fella.
dude.
Nice fellow. We discussed him and some of the Art of Walk guys coming and doing coverage and doing some commentating at the WTC with us, which I think would be brilliant. I think a lot of people would like to
He's
see.
called Nick. He's got to be an awesome dude if he's called Nick. He's got to be an awesome dude if he's called Nick.
Oh, exactly. I don't think that's public. That's private knowledge. I think that's completely okay. I think that'd be fucking.
Fine, yeah.
I think that would be baller. And that'd be really, really fun. And I think like joining the team to do that would be fucking sweet as fuck. Anyway, the
basically he's covering for me, right? I mean, he won't be quite as good as me, but
that's what he said on the phone. He said, "I don't know if I can fill those shoes.
I've
because I
got
can't
pretty big
walk that
feet.
fast." Yeah.
He's also shorter than me, which means his feet are smaller.
However, I'm not one to throw shade at this particular article, because if there's anyone who's tried to professionalize wargaming as a sport, I would like to think that we've at least tried to do that with the T-Sports Network. But we do get to do some critical analysis, though, right now.
Oh, lovely.
Of the player card. Yeah, and because this is actually something that we designed for the first Super Series. Like, you know, and it's kind of interesting, what stuff do you put on there, because you have to track relevant stats to actually normally, a player card in a sport would normally track relevant stats, wins, losses,
like passing percentage, completed passing.
So I've already had a thought about these 3 bars at the top where it says list building, deployment, and tactics, where it might as well just all be maxed out. Specifically also, if you're going to do tactics, you can't lump strategy in there unless you're an idiot. That's okay. So my 3 were going to be rules knowledge.
Okay.
A
system. Wait, can we use game design terms? System mastery is actually
fine. System mastery. That's fine. Second one was going to be called not taking shit. Okay.
Wait, hold on. I want to write these down. Because I want to make our own player card for next week.
But not taking shit is effectively the defense stat, all right? Whereby if someone tries to convince you to do stuff on the table or make a mistake or what have you, it's your ability to see through the bullshit. And
what about table presence?
Table presence
is that a separate thing, or is that
I've got a term for that when you're ready.
Yeah.
It's called bullying. So it's system mastery, bullying, and not taking shit. Those are the 3 stats that you can max out in 40k.
Okay, so
I've got a lot better at bullying.
So first off, I'd like to advocate that no one bullies anyone on the tabletop. I'd just like to say that I don't support that, and we don't. But Tom makes a fairly good point, and there's a really good show you could go and listen back. Fuck knows where it is in our pile of shows at this point.
Specs Jog PLC. That's a much more politically correct way of putting it.
Sorry, one more time, Tom. You laughed through the whole word.
Tactical assertiveness.
It's called tactical assertiveness.
Okay, I'll change that.
I
Tactical
prefer bullying
assertiveness.
personally.
Okay, I'm going to change that. That's well done. Tactical assertiveness. Well done.
It's bullying, Rob. You've got to do it.
Yeah, there's a really good show that I did with Darren Watson. You can listen to. We talked about deployment and talked about being positive all the time, because you end up infecting your opponent by you're being so positive on the tabletop. They feel pressure. There's a lot of mental gamesmanship. That was a review. You can go back and watch it. But at this point, we're the show that's produced almost the most content that's been very. If you talk about content created versus views, we fucking absolutely crushing it, boys. We're the reverse algorithm, which I'm really proud of. Yeah,
we're flipping the script.
There's almost as many views per hours at this point, which is just brilliant. So Tom, you would change it up for system mastery, not taking shit, and tactical assertiveness.
And bullying.
You want to put Don't you want to put those together? Not taking shit and tactical assertiveness.
No, because not taking shit is the ability to withstand the tactical assertiveness,
Right.
and the tactical assertiveness is the ability to apply the tactical assertiveness.
Do you not think that should be on like some sort of like plus
Because
minus bar?
you could. So no, well, you can be very good at not like taking the shit, but very shit at applying the shit.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, yeah, so you could have a poker face, so someone doesn't affect you with their stuff, but then you're not projecting it outwards.
If you're a quiet dude who's just absorbing, like, not really like interacting with your opponent, firstly that means that you're not asserting yourself, but it doesn't mean that you're listening to what your opponent's saying and doing what they want you to do.
Hey Rura, so just in the interest of making things look nice, this is really important. Suggestion in the chat is that not taking shit and bullying could be in a XY axis, and I love the idea of that. The idea of that.
Yeah.
So, which does open us up to maybe a potential other stat.
Yeah, you could
see.
list writing would probably be the other one.
System mastery. Do you not think that goes in there?
No, because it's not necessarily just about knowing the rules and knowing what everything does. It's about being able to build something that can work together in a certain way, right?
Okay. Well, this is the first opportunity that I've had to ask anyone about this. Obviously, this is something I'm going to have to design for the 40k Super Series, and probably something for the WTC.
Or even just working on the fly, right? So it was something I talked a bit about when Innes was on the show. Like what Innes does with Team Scotland now as the captain is he's very big on when you're playing a tournament, you prep all the lists you could potentially play against. So when you turn up and you see that, you know exactly what you have to do because you've researched it, right? Yeah. I do the complete opposite for a very specific reason. I research nothing. The reason really is because I'm lazy. But the reason I like to pretend it is that I can turn up and I can look at the list and I have to work out on the fly what I'm going to do. And that allows me to be flexible with my strategy.
Yeah, see, exactly the same. I used to get a load of like New Scientists. You know, I had a subscription to that, and I would get that and read that. I now exclusively don't do that, and I just get my news from QAnon Facebook pages. Like that's it. That's all I do. I just like.
So you can read it on the Facebook article and make up your mind there and then.
And they tell me what's happening. Like I don't need to even research.
Yeah, it's easy that way. They just
tell me
read
what the situation.
And say what should I think and feel, and read that, and then do that.
Yep, sounds about right.
Yeah. Wait, Evangelist says, as shown by chess grandmasters, we need the system mastery to be passed against chaos randomness factor. One of the masters used to make bad or wrong tactical moves just to throw people off their game, which is a great article to read, by the way, about that particular game, which was they should do. Right. Right. So, Tom, good point. List writing, I think that's excellent. Preparedness is a good one. Twitch chat and Nick. And Tom also, obviously. Any other key stats that you would like to see in a player card? That's what I'm asking. What are the key stats do you want to see?
Not sure, but one could be dice efficiency on the table. Some people can be quite messy with their dice. Yeah, speed.
Speed. That is. I just want speed.
Yeah, speed.
Just
and
speed.
That's the only stat I max out, by the way. That's the only stat I max. Let's get this game over with so I can do something fun. Straight up.
Speed is a really interesting factor. I'd like to see speed. Bendy ruler usage.
It's only got 20 minutes of a chess clock. Let's see if we can make it work, Draco.
Dan Don't says lower back endurance. That's actually pretty key.
Shit.
Yeah, I'd actually.
So here we go. That needs to be an XY axis.
You can objectively measure that.
No, but that needs to be an XY as well, because you could have really good back endurance, but you have to use it a lot more because you're taller and the tables are like at knee height.
Well, I actually, a stat I would like to see is percentage of game time stood up to sat down.
Mm-hmm. Distance walked.
Oh, fuck, I like that up too.
Gamer funk resistance is, I'm not sure how measurable that is. Maybe. Reach, yeah, he's got like in boxing, he's got a longer reach. He's going to reach across the table. Yeah.
Oh, maybe shorter players tend to play in a smaller proportion of the board and play armies that play in that area, and taller players with longer arms.
The tower predominantly
play
played by small men.
Well, yeah.
I'm saying if there was a study done.
See how many short people play tower.
So, all right. So, if no one's got any other suggestions in the chat, should we have a look should we have a look at what Games Workshop decided were important stats for us to know about for a player? Yeah. Now, okay, here we go. First up, list building. Tom, you got that checked off. List writing, list building.
So we actually had discussion about deployment afterwards, by the way. GW do not like how Nick deploys. Nick deploys in corner and fans out, and that's how he plays. Every game.
It's a very safe tactic. So list building, they've rated Nick. Interestingly, it's just a bar, so I don't know if it's out of 10, if it's a percentage, but it looks very high.
No,
is it 9 out of 10 or is it like 93 or 87 out of 100?
I don't know if any of the designers in the chat would like to grab that and do some like infographic maths on it. It looks like it's 95% is the list building.
All I'm getting from this graph is that Nick is crap at deployment in early game. And the only reason I put him crap as early game is specifically because they don't like how he deploys.
Tom, you're really blowing the lead. We haven't read to there yet. Like we need to.
It's not that detailed, Rob. Like, do you want to spend 10 minutes talking about what deployment means?
I do. I really do. Because
I want to know how they've measured it.
Thank you. That's my question.
Is it a self-scoring measure? Is it one person? Is it a bunch of people? Or is it stats collected from 4AKstats.com?
Which part do you start at when you start measuring?
Yeah, like
which end is the bottom?
From the base on the far end.
yeah. Is it like 1 out of 10? This building?
I cannot wait for this every week. Can I just tell you that it's fucking gold and it's the best fucking shit that they've done. Right, so list building very high. We think 95%. Unfortunately, it looks like Nick's weakest strength is deployment. Again, it's just a bar. Doesn't really say much. Do we know what that means? Can we guess what that?
What army is that with?
Yeah, Tom, you seem to think that Nick has a very specific, singular deployment style.
He deploys in corner and fans out
every time.
Pretty much
with every single army.
Most of the time, he likes to be quite. He likes to be quite careful with deployment, which is why they've given him an early game rating that's low for some reason. Because apparently, not dying in the early game is shit.
It's tactics. Deploys behind terrain not to give the opponent things to shoot at. Not ideal. Only 85%. Not ideal. Isn't Nick on here because he does quite well? Wouldn't the argument be that his deployment is normally quite good to achieve?
Yeah, but he's missing a massive chunk of a bar there. Also, by the way, if you're not maxing out tactics, you're a big noob. Okay. Tactics aren't hard. It's strategy that's hard. It's different things.
Can we clip that? Someone also clip that for me, please. You big noob. Yeah, could you tell us the difference between tactics and strategy?
That's not me saying Nick is big noob. I'm saying that means they probably got it wrong.
Tactics is
like your micromanagement, right? And your ability to use something efficiently and effectively, right? Where strategy is your overall game plan. It's like macro versus microeconomics.
Yeah, and arguably, to be better at Warhammer, it's actually about the strategy over the tactics. The tactics is almost like it almost does itself. Like it's a skill. Effectively, you can learn very well.
Yeah, it's like muscle memory.
To a degree.
Yeah,
I much prefer the macro thing definition rather than just having like a tactics thing, because I definitely like that version of talking about it. Because micro would be like where you piling in a certain combat unit to wrap or trap or tag an objective or do something. Whereas
yeah, that's interesting. So macro, micro, as opposed to tactics. So tactics seems like an odd stat, and feels like someone who really doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, but it doesn't matter. All right, then early game, late game. Nick doesn't seem to score very well on early game unless the little white bar isn't the actual bar and it's the kind of dark bar. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the text for early game is white and the bar on the right is white, and then the late game text is blue and the bar is blue.
Oh, nice.
So
well done.
Is the name of the text, is the color of the text any indication? So that would indicate that he has a bad early game but better late games.
I don't know how you define bad. I mean, he's not proactive in the early game most of the time, unless he was playing Gene Stealer Cult, in which case he's just very careful, but he makes sure he hits properly.
So what do they are they saying to us that he, like, what does he do later that, like,
he wins?
Yeah, what changes about his playstyle in the late game compared to the early game that makes it better?
What are we defining as late game? Turn 3 onwards?
Yeah, that's also a problem in the infographic. I'm not sure. I have a question for everyone if anyone's interested. In the doesn't everyone win at the end? If you win, like, isn't that where you win the end of the game? I'm confused by it generally.
Yeah.
So yeah, this doesn't make sense. Tempo though is maybe I think what they're trying to get at. Do you think?
Yeah, but then how do you? Then you? I don't think so, because I don't know how you'd even define that as that, right? What does that mean about his tempo? Does it mean that he holds the tempo? Does it mean that he just keeps off the tempo and then just wins last turn? Like a good example, right? LGT last year, right? I was winning for a grand total of 4 turns the entire event.
Mm-hmm.
I won 4 games.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I had a shitty early game and a crap late game and a great late game? Or does it mean that I was able to time my run straight in so that I was making sure I won by like 1 or 2 points every game?
Well,
because if you're playing ITC, you don't need to smash someone. You just need to make sure you have enough points to win the game.
Yeah.
So why take a risk for more points when you just say, well, I could win by 30 points. I could win with 40 points, but there's a 70% chance I do. Or I could win with 30 points, but there's a 95% chance that I do.
Mm-hmm.
You go for 30 most times, right? Unless it's LGT. LGT is a unique case, but
yeah. So one of the bits I'm trying to get at here is, what do we think? Someone in the chat says, "Why am I reviewing an infographic?" Because it's
banter.
It's probably as likely well thought out as anything. I would like to think that a multi-million-pound company writing an article led by like the head of their
are they worth more than Rolls-Royce now?
Tesla, in fact.
They're worth more than Tesla.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would think,
which have sent something to space.
Yeah, they sent a car to space.
Does that mean that we can send the Space Marine book from 8th edition into space?
So no, because the problem is that Tesla makes things that go into space. Games Workshop doesn't.
We have Space Marines.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I understand what you're saying. It's just I don't think they can build Space Marines. That's what they do.
Force.
I want to sometimes I'm like, do I take this somewhere that it shouldn't be? But anyway, right. So next up, so tempo. We're not sure. We're not sure we can put tempo on a player card, because also armies have a different tempo, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm currently playing my orcs, where I basically don't do anything on the first turn. And I'm okay with it, and then I just fucking absolutely go in on turn 2. That's how I'm currently playing my orcs. So
like the similar to my bloodletter bomb lists, where I would just wait turn 1 or 2 and then hit with bloodletters.
Yeah.
And then it's over or not at that point.
Whereas knights, maybe to get the efficiency out, I don't think knights even play anymore. How about the Nurgling build? Nurglings normally go deploy straight up first, right?
Yeah, they're much more
new Necrons
early game tempo.
So Necrons have a dynasty that gives them all obsec and allows them to move 6 inches before the start of the game.
Is that both? I think they're different. There's obsec 1, and then there's a build.
People have definitely been taking both.
Okay, all right. Well, then that might be true, and I'm not as comfortable as you are.
Neither
You seem very confident on that. I thought it was one or the other. I thought there was you could be all obsec.
I think there's a way to get both.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Custom dynasty, you can get both. Okay, well then definitely do that. That's really good.
Everyone's been running it. Literally everyone.
Okay,
it's been testing that. Yeah,
that's fantastic. All right, so that would play aggressively on turn 1 and would have a good tempo, but anyway. So then the other things is preferred armies that you play with. That kind of makes sense.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, armies that you know. Major events 1, of course, you want to know the credence of the player, of course.
By the way, I am mad triggered that they put ATC and ETC together.
Why?
That's like saying because the ETC is the hardest event to win in the world, and the ATC isn't.
Mm-hmm.
The ATC is effectively the North American equivalent of the Belgian Team Championships. Not that the Belgian Team Championships is anything to sniff at, but it's basically a secondary team tournament. It's not like tier 1, like prestigious or respected.
Is this, Tom, like is this to you very similar to like the entire movie industry being so like American centric? There's always an American flag in some sort of like blockbuster.
Yeah, it's very similar, right?
There. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so you
or
feel
like how Paris is just Prague.
Yeah, exactly. And then you feel like because this is written by, well, at least curated by an American person, not that the guest is American, because the guest is American.
Well, I think Mike does respect the ETC. He's played there before, so he knows it well. It's just like how it's about relating to the audience, right?
What is funny about it though, I've just noticed is that it's like it kind of reads like, and he's won events such as Nova, Invitational, LVO, Adepticon, the ATC, etc.
Isn't the most prestigious thing to win as a team championships the WTC? And then the most, and then which isn't on there, and then the most prestigious thing to win as a singles event, as far as I understand, is the LVO. Which
prestigious?
I mean,
I can't think of anything that's more prestigious, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I think it's particularly.
But it is the most prestigious because, like, either if it's a dearth of other prestigious events, it's still and therefore it should go LVO WTC. Isn't he also a back-to-back WTC champion as well?
Yeah, he's the only one, yeah. Well, I don't know no, he isn't actually. The Polish won it back-to-back years, I think, right? Okay. Yeah, he's the only one that I've seen win it back-to-back. In fact, no, I saw the Germans win it in 2016.
Okay. Well, anyway, so player card overall. We've done the review. I'm really happy about the player card review. We spent longer on that than actually maybe the FAQs, and I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't mind that at all.
Oh, there's also that clip of him telling Tony G off at the LVO. That was brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We need a special. Yeah. Other stuff.
That should have been a highlight. Could have been like career highlight.
Yeah, career highlight. Yeah, that would have been one. We need a special skills fact as well, like dice microwaving or tea cozy acquisition. Any of those things. Not that Nick, as far as I'm aware, has done any of those things. Would you like to see any special skills, Nick? What would your special skill be if it was going to be on a player card? Tom?
On a card?
Yeah.
Maybe dice jokes, because I like to do a lot of dice jokes, like roll some silly dice.
Okay, dice jokes is your special skills. Dice jokes. It reminds me of that Red Dwarf episode where like he's like they're choosing their characters. They're like special skills, dice jokes. That's what you get from me. Best conversion. That's also another one. So
Met guns.
Tom,
mine could be scratch building.
Oh, scratch building. Tom, what would be your special skill?
Running it down.
Running it down.
There you go.
All right, good.
Running what down?
It's the game, just completely hard throwing it for the banter.
Running it down. Nikos.
Not the chess clock.
Not the chess clock.
No, we've already got a speed stat.
No, we've taken the speed stat out because it means nothing. Oh no, we've got speed. No, we've got flat speed as a stat. No, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, we don't need speed. We just have running it down. Yeah.
Yeah, flat speed, and then percentage of time stood up is also a stat for some reason. All right, well, it's been a pleasure discussing 40k today. If we've
by the way, seeing, so I know this is a bit loaded by just asking the question, but I don't know how else I'm meant to do this because you don't have WhatsApp on your PC. But seeing as we've used his mug for the last 2 hours, do we want to host the Art of War?
Yeah. Oh, we could at least raid them if they're live right now.
Yeah, they are. There's
one. Let's raid it.
I'll do that in a moment. For you guys. But
don't go there yet. You stay here.
Yeah, no, we're staying. Yeah,
stay here, chat.
You guys stay here. We're going to just hang out for a moment.
Well, look impressive, okay.
Yeah. What 40k plans have you two got this week? Don't forget, next week we're going to be doing the Necron book review. Very excited for that.
Just trying to get a game in at some point, I guess.
Okay.
I've not got any fixed plans.
If you would like to schedule one, there's a young man right here who's well up for it.
Is
It's
there?
not me.
I've already got one planned. Already got one booked in.
Oh, really?
I just want to Red Roller as many people as I can before they arguably make Red Roller twice as strong or half as good.
I would recommend, Rob, then, build an entire army around the Red Roller and just go full in on the Red Roller and pray they don't FAQ it out of existence.
Well, if he does that, they will.
Oh, God. Okay, sure. Okay. Circon wants more live games on the show. That's actually something that we're in the discussion. That's one of the things that we're discussing. We don't want to just do random live games. We would like to set a schedule for one, and that does mean we all need to look at our schedules. But that is something we're aiming to do. And we would also like to do scheduled live games with commentary, because I think that's arguably better than doing it with mic'd players as well. As much as doing it with mic'd players is fun, you do require to have people who can present.
Yeah, there's more. There can be more interaction with the chat then as well. It makes it more interactive for people watching, I think, as well, if you have commentary there as well.
Yeah, it's much better, and you can still, and because it's not a tournament, it's far more. It could just be better. Tom, you got any 40k plans this week?
No, I'm going to paint this cult list.
One cultist.
Are you heavy metal style painting them?
No, I don't know what that means.
Painting it super well.
Oh dear.
Okay, are you excited about learning all about Necrons this week?
I'm not excited about learning it. I'm excited about having learned it.
Oh,
I don't want to learn it. I don't want to put the effort and time into learning it. But when I know it, that'll be exciting.
Once you get to the end, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I might start playing with my Necrons then. I might put the Elder away for now. Just keep it a painting project.
Are you going to, Nick? Are there any of the Necron releases that have taken you fancy so far?
As in the new models. So I've got my Necron army is pretty big. I've got all the bases covered so far. It's just all the new stuff come out. I really like the Scorpec destroyers. I'm not a fan of the destroyers that look like the old wraiths. But what I'm going to do is initially just play like a warrior spam army, because that was initially how I played my army when I first made it for 8th edition. It was like 60 warriors and 3 big bricks of 20 and like a monolith and stuff like that. So and also I used a list with lots of ghost arcs, which is a night scythe, which I quite enjoyed. So I'm going to be probably trying that, see how good that is now with the new codex.
Twitch chat, what are you guys going to be up to? Just asking that so it can take time to get through. Nick, that sounds really, really fun. I think using the stratagems will be really interesting. And I think some of those bonuses that they've got seem very strong. I'm excited to see the new RP in play. And especially from you, who I know you worked really hard to try and make that army work several times. You've been chatting to Dick van der Hoosen for the past few years. And you've tried that army several times, so I'm really hoping it pays out for you, and it's something that's at least competitive.
Yeah, I bought that investment a while ago. Hopefully, this is the time that it kicks in. That I start getting those dividends from it.
Yeah.
Oh, yoink! I'm being stolen, guys. Logan just sent a link in the chat that I'm going for.
The 40k product developer.
What, is that like the dice products?
No, that's actually just
no abomination like the Luminef dice or the new Salamander's dice can ever happen again.
That's actually just the chicken that they cut the head off when he runs around deciding on the points before he dies. That's actually that job.
It's okay. I get to live for a little while deciding points. I can actually do something worthwhile. Never mind.
Good. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been really, really fun. I've loved it loads, and I can't wait. I think 40k is in a really I think the hold on. I think the game is a really fun game to play. I think the entire thing is maybe in a monumental shit show, but thankfully, there's some good articles to help us kind of navigate that a little bit better, which is sweet.
Yeah, they are the Emperor's shining light in the warp, guiding our ships through.
Yeah, well done to Goonhammer, but also big love to Battlescribe. Of course, and Warhapedia.
Half of the year.
Yeah, Warhapedia website of the year, coming in hot 2020. So I'm just all about that. Look, if I'm going to give my date of 21, I don't mind it being Russians. That's exactly how I want to have it.
At least you know they're not capable of using it for malicious purposes because it's Russia.
Exactly.
It's not very good.
So yeah, check those out, use those, and also a big shout out to ITC Battles app as well, which I've also fucking loved using at the moment. All of those three things have been just really great for gaming. So I think 40k gaming is just super sweet. Anyway, thanks to Nick and Tom as always. Couldn't do this without you. Thanks for.
Shall we do that raid, man?
Yeah, let me just do the end of the show.
Oh, I just thought you'd forget about it.
No, I'm not forgetting about it. You do it now. No, I'm not doing it.
Okay, fine, I'll do
my
it.
flow. No, not the raid. Not the raid bit. The end of the show bit. Come on.
All right, thank you for everyone who joined us live for the show. If you listen back to the podcast, you can enjoy it again because, it's just so much great content. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to our Patreon and to our Twitch. It means that Rob can eat jars of jam and live and not die and produce more content, which is always brilliant. I think we're next back. Are we doing anything on Saturday, guys?
We are. We're every day. There's a stream.
Oh, of course. We have a stream
every day, 12 o'clock for the stream streak.
On Saturday is for a release.
Yeah, we could hang out. Just we could hang out talking about the new stuff if you wanted to.
I mean, we can do. I am recording something at midday for an adjacent podcast that I'm doing, and then I can join you guys afterwards. But apart from that, I think that's pretty much it. Unless we see you for another stream streak. See you next week on 40k Thursdays.
Yeah, well done. We've nailed it. End the podcast, but now I'm going to do the raid.